Looks like a good, fun weekend, doesn't it, Large Marge? Hell no. This is for the birds. This weather is made for basement dwelling. You can't have any fun on a weekend in weather like this. Put on a record, have some fun, listen to some rock and roll, listen to something killer. Ho, did you see what I did there? Welcome, fellow Kiss fans. Welcome to It's All For You Demon, celebrating the fun of being a Kiss fan. My name is Rick. This weekend, we're stuck inside, and we are celebrating the fun of Killers. Killers is, of course, a greatest hits album containing 4 original new tracks. Now, this album was released at a very strange time for the band. June 15th, 1982, the band was just coming off of The Elder, a commercial failure, and preparing for one of their heaviest albums of all time, 1982's Creatures of the Night. As Killers was not released in the US, it was an import, it was a very strange CD for me and my friends to buy when we were in high school. We were diving into Kiss, hoping to collect their entire catalog on CD, and this was an import, which meant it was more expensive. And I remember at the time there was this mom and pop video store in our town, and they also sold CDs. This place was like Kiss heaven because they sold the entire catalog of CDs as sound savers for $9.99, which meant they also sold Alive and Alive 2 for $9.99. They didn't double the price to $19.99 for the double CD. So we got Alive and Alive 2 for $10. We had to pay the price when it came to the import of Killers. One of the last CDs to ever go into my collection because of that heftier price tag on a bonanza budget. That's why I worked in high school. CDs were a dime a dozen. Imports, especially, had to go on the waiting list. But once I purchased Killers, I found myself kind of scratching my head about it. And I think a lot of that had to do with where my head was at the time. I was a 15-year-old kid diving into the world of Kiss, really soaking in everything. And when you're surrounded and listening to great albums like Creatures of the Night, Rock and Roll Over, Hotter Than Hell, and then you hear songs like Down on Your Knees, it's kind of a letdown. However, as I've grown older, I've grown to appreciate Killers, and I feel in my soul that this album is the perfect winter weekend escape. Hence, it's being played tonight. Now, I am just going to review these songs and kind of tell you my take on the songs now as an older listener. First track, I'm a Legend Tonight, the Paul Stanley opener. This song always reminds me of a track that could have gone on Unmasked. It has a very Is That You vibe to me. And even though Is That You was not written by Paul Stanley or anyone else in Kiss, as Is That You is a cover song, I'm a Legend Tonight always kind of reminds me of 1980 Unmasked. Not sure why, but I always associate it with that. Next track, Down on Your Knees, a song I absolutely should love because I'm a huge Bryan Adams fan. However, I cannot stand this song. To me, it sticks in my head for all the wrong reasons. I just never, ever have been a fan of Down on Your Knees. Which is funny because Down on Your Knees really reminds me of some of the Bryan Adams Reckless demos. Now, on a side note, if you are a fan of Bryan Adams or a fan of the Reckless album, I highly suggest this Reckless box set with demos for the Reckless album. One note in particular, kind of taking a left turn on my Killers review, there's a song on here called Boys Night Out. Look it up, see if you can find it. I have always felt, every time I listen to the song Boys Night Out, which was a demo for Reckless, written around 1982-83, my daydream as a Kiss fan is listening to the song Boys Night Out. I feel that Boys Night Out was written for Ace Frehley. That is a total assumption of me. That is a Kiss daydream. It's not fact. Don't run with it and think I am laying down historic fact. I'm not. It's just an assumption. Boys Night Out sounds very much like a Frehley's Comet song. Sounds like an Ace Frehley solo type song. I love to daydream about, thinking about Bryan Adams and Kiss's relationship, songwriting. Maybe he wrote Boys Night Out as an Ace Frehley song. Fun to think about. Back to the killer tracks. Next track, Cold Gin. Now, when I first became a Kiss fan, I was 15 years old, aspiring to be a rock and roll guitarist myself. I loved Cold Gin. I loved that jam breakdown in the middle. It's the first thing my friend Danny and I ever played, guitar and drums, on New Year's Eve, 1990, in my garage in my parents' house. The first thing we ever jammed was Cold Gin and that breakdown jam. However, as a 44-year-old man, if I never hear Cold Gin as long as I live, I'll be just fine. I'll be just fine. Next track, Love Gun. One of my all-time favorite Kiss songs. Absolute number one favorite Kiss song is Mr. Speed. Tied with that is Love Gun. Great add to this record. Up next, Shout It Out Loud. I'm not a huge fan of Destroyer. I've said it before, I have yet to make my follow-up video to Destroyer. Still in the works, still planned, coming sometime in 2019. Just not a fan of Destroyer. However, I like Shout It Out Loud when it's on a different record. Call me stupid, call me crazy. I know that sounds ridiculous. But if I hear it on Destroyer, if I hear it on Killers, I'm really digging this song. And closing out side A, Sure Know Something. I'm a huge Dynasty fan. I love every track on Dynasty, and hearing Sure Know Something on a Greatest Hits always makes me smile. Side 2 of the record kicks off with the Paul Stanley track, Nowhere to Run. A track to me that sounds very much reminiscent of Paul Stanley's solo material 1978. Great song. It has that Paul Stanley solo album vibe, and it is so much fun. Next up, last of the new material songs, another Paul Stanley track, Partners in Crime. Partners in Crime always reminded me of a track that should have gone on Animalize. It kind of has that 1980s non-makeup Animalize feel. Every time I hear it, I kind of always think of Animalize. And since we're at the end of our new tracks, now's the time to note, no Gene Simmons songs at all on this record. Wonder who was controlling this baby? Next track, Detroit Rock City. Of course, this is a greatest hits. You have to throw Detroit Rock City in. Myself, I would have preferred maybe Making Love from Rock and Roll Over. However, it's a greatest hits. You gotta throw it in. God of Thunder, I guess you had to have a little Gene in there, so throw him a bone. Throw him a bone. Then we have I Was Made for Loving You, which is a nice inclusion because from Double Platinum to Killers, I Was Made for Loving You was a huge hit, so rightfully included in the greatest hits killer. And lastly, Rock and Roll All Night. You have to have it in there. I can take it or leave it. Anymore, kind of leave it. At least it's the live version. And there you have my thoughts on the 1982 import greatest hits, Kiss Killers. And beyond that, the aesthetic of the album is pretty fun. If you think about it, this is kind of the only new wave-ish album cover we have from the band. They are in makeup, however, it's that weird elder transition period for the band. Strange backdrop to use, but I do absolutely love the coloring. 1982, the pink, the blue, the yellow. Very, very Kiss new wave. And I absolutely love it. And weekends like this are made for basements. They're made for record players. And they are made for albums to hold and look at the artwork while you spin the record on your turntable and envelop yourself in the sound. This weekend, it looks like we are stuck inside all weekend long. I've got my records. The dogs have their bones. And I'm hoping you have a wonderful, safe weekend wherever you are. Thank you for hanging with me. Take care, be safe, never stop having fun, and I will talk to you soon.